All right, friends. I've got good news for you, and I've got bad news for you. The bad news is that our friends over at Stravacraft Coffee haven't been feeling the DNVR love as much lately. The good news is they've upped their offer to hopefully get it back. So now, when you hit up our friends at Stravacraft Coffee, you can use the code DNVR25 to save 25% on your first purchase at Stravacraft Coffee. Not only do we love what Strava tastes like, and we pretty much run off of coffee at DNVR, but it's also CBD infused and helps with so many different ailments. It's different for everyone, but if you check out their reviews, you'll be blown away with people's stories about how Strava has helped them. They'll also deliver it straight to your door with that code DNVR25. So hit up our friends at Stravacraft Coffee and use that code DNVR25.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach, Mace, RK at the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Nothing supposed to wait for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with Breck, Brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR, and we are presented by MSU Denver Online. Check them out, msudenver.edu/online, to see all they have to offer. We're talking 750 total classes, 45 plus hybrid programs that you can get into, and you can further your education while keeping a job, because MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution. So make sure you check them out, msudenver.edu/online.
My boy, Ryan, what's up? Little throwback RK and Zach today. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I don't know why, but when I look back on just the straight up RK and Zach era, there's like two places I go to. There's training camp pods, when we were stuffed into our little tent there, trying to figure out how to drown out like Vic Lombardi and Mark Mosier sitting next to us. And then there's like these pre-draft pods when we're, just trying to figure out just what the hell the Broncos are going to do.
Yes, and man, we're right back there. Just a fitting throwback, man. When I think of RK and Zach pods, I think of having a great time, but we're stuffed in a broom closet in the middle of Dove Valley headquarters.
Those are some good ones too. Not the worst acoustics in there, to be fair.
No, seriously.
Or you could also, of course, go to like 2 a.m. in the Broncos press box with a mouse trap at our feet.
And we're eating mice as well.
Oh, God. Okay, so one thing that often happens this time of year is we as media and, podcasters and content creators fall in love with the most exciting outcome, right? We start talking about quarterbacks a lot because it's not debatable. The most exciting thing that the Broncos can do in the draft is trade up and draft a quarterback. Like it's not even close. So it's really easy for us to get into a groove of talking about it because it excites us. It excites everyone else. It's fun to talk about. The truth is, there is still a very decent chance that the Broncos don't draft a quarterback. And so what I wanted to discuss with you today is a few things. What does it look like if the Broncos don't draft a quarterback? In my opinion, it's probably a trade back. So who are they looking at in that scenario? And then how does this fan base, I don't know if the word is recover because that seems harsh, but I think there does need to be a little bit of recovery, not only from the letdown of not having one of these 5 quarterbacks that everyone's drooling all over, but also
drooling all over.
Yeah, exactly. How does Drew Lock and the fan base kind of repair their relationship? So let's start at least with what does it look like for the Broncos to not draft a quarterback? What scenario plays out where you don't think the Broncos end up with any of these guys?
Well, I think it's very possible that that could happen. And that's, if Atlanta goes with Trey Lance and then another team jumps for Justin Fields, then there you go. Or even potentially more likely, and over at DraftKings Sportsbook now, Justin Fields is the favorite to go number 3 overall. So boom, there you go. Justin Fields, number 3, Trey Lance, number 4. And then the Broncos, Ryan, as much as I want Mac, the Broncos have shown zero interest in Mac Jones. That's not going to be the pick. So then there you go. Then the Broncos have to adjust quickly. Or if someone jumps them, at 8 or 7 to get Justin Fields, which would be a huge mistake for the Broncos to not make that move instead. But if that happens and the Broncos aren't going quarterback, and in fact, then I think they're trading back because I think the value at 9 just isn't going to be there with the player. So I think the best case scenario after that would be trading back, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. And I think that there's some really good players that if the Broncos trade back, the Broncos can snag a player. What I don't want to see is them snagging a guy at 9 that they could have got at 16 if they traded back, and I think that George Payton, the guy who loves to stack draft capital, is very aware of that, right? When they get to 9, especially if you're going to draft defense, like we talked about this in our little YouTube preview series that we're working on, and so you can check that out on this very YouTube channel. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, switch over to YouTube. It's a much better product. But we talked about this, like the Broncos could have the best defensive player on the board at number 9. I think it's almost a likelihood that the best defensive player on the board will be there at number 9. The weird part is there's no answer to the question, which is who is the best player, the best defensive player on the board. So if you're going defense, I think you try to trade back from 9 and take your option of Micah Parsons, JOK, Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley, JC Horn. Yeah. Like there's 5 guys there that I just named that you could like, that you're saying, okay, well, one of these guys is going to be there pretty much no matter where we trade back to. So it's a weird scenario. I think it's possible. I want to look here though, because you said that the Justin Fields is the favorite to go to San Francisco. This has been changing. Like
it literally changed. Ryan, I checked this 20 minutes ago. I mean, like 5 minutes before we started this podcast, and the Nagelator correcting me saying that Mac Jones is favored now, minus 125, Fields plus 125. So you're absolutely right, Ryan, that this is changing like crazy. And really quick, got to give a huge shout out to Blake Edwards coming in with a super chat. He says, best Broncos podcast around. Y'all are awesome. Well, Blake, you are awesome. Thank you so much for that, friend.
Absolutely. We love a good super chat, and we always have our questions answered on the podcast side of things, but if you ever want to get a question pushed right to the top here on the YouTube side of things, you can always send us a super chat. Where were
Ryan,
you going?
Really quick, what's crazy about this is you talk about these defensive players, and I think if the Broncos trade back, that's the best way to go. And what's crazy is the Broncos could get the best defensive player on the board and draft the first defensive player, depending on how this draft falls. And I still don't really love that at 9, which is crazy. I mean, if you were to tell me any year at 9, you're going to get the best offensive or defensive player, you'd think we'd be drooling over that and saying, holy cow, this is incredible. Put the best defensive player with Vic Fangio. But it really feels like, the 10, maybe like the 6 best defensive players are kind of all clumped together. And so if you can get one of those at 9, you can get one of those at 18, 15, 20 if you trade back. And the value there is just so much better because to me, I feel like they're all about equal. I don't think there's a big difference between Patrick Surtain and JC Horn and Caleb Farley being healthy, of course. I don't think there's I don't think Micah Parsons in this Broncos defense is that much of a top 5 pick where he changes your board. So I think what's crazy to say is the Broncos, the best pick for them, if they stay at 9 and it's not a quarterback, maybe offensive tackle, maybe Rashawn Slater, which is just crazy to say that potentially the 10th offensive player picked at a tackle position where you have Juwan James, that's a better pick than the best defensive player.
I mean, it's true. Like it's very true. It's very possible. I love looking at these DraftKings specials here on the draft, not just because I'm a DraftKings stan, but because it's so fascinating to me. The favorite to be selected with the Broncos' first draft pick, regardless of where it happens, is Trey Lance at plus 200. He's a heavy favorite because the closest behind him is Micah Parsons at plus 400. And then right behind him, Mac Jones at plus 600. And then it goes on down Rashawn Slater, Patrick Surtain, Justin Fields, Penei Sewell. But, I mean, what buzz are they going off of there with the Broncos as the favorites to draft Trey Lance? I feel like all of the Trey Lance buzz, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Zach, has been external. Like, that's coming from just mock draft guys.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that the Broncos are doing just as much homework publicly on Trey Lance as they are Justin Fields, and that's why we haven't seen much buzz around Mac Jones to the Broncos, because there's been no public homework done on him. But you're right, in terms of coming from the building, Ryan, everything I've heard and reported has been about Justin Fields. It has not been about Trey Lance.
So then you like the value of Justin Fields at plus 800, especially if the 49ers are going to go Mac Jones.
Yeah, you have to love it. And that's, I think, the biggest key right here, Ryan, is Justin Fields. It seems like he may be the one to fall if he falls past 3. So you have to take that gamble there, thinking that when that move was initially made, what did we hear when the 49ers jumped up? All we heard was Mac Jones. It didn't make sense to us, but that's what we heard. And Ryan, going off what you've tried to take the mentality over the past couple of years is trust the first thing that you feel or that you hear. So if you trust that Mac Jones is going to the 49ers, then I do think that there's a good chance that Justin Fields falls. And another key piece is that 4th overall pick. Justin Fields doesn't make that much sense in Atlanta. Trey Lance does. So if both of those guys are on the board for Atlanta and they do go quarterback, it's going to be Trey Lance, not just because he makes sense, but we've also heard Terry Fontenot, their GM, be in love with Trey Lance. So there's a lot coming there. Once you get to 5, 6, 7, and 8, Ryan, a team would have to trade up in order for Justin Fields to be taken off the board there, unless Detroit gets crazy or something.
Yeah, it's true. What does your gut tell you on what the Broncos are going to do? Because you talk about trusting your gut. I'll be honest, my gut says the Broncos don't draft a quarterback.
My gut says they want to, and if one falls to 7, they make it happen. Whether it's a trade to 7 or 8, or they stay at 9. I just don't think that George Paton in his very first draft, 4 months on the job, is going to be willing to trade so much to move up to 4 or 5, as much as I would do that. And then I think that so they roll the dice there, and if a quarterback doesn't fall to them, then it's a trade back. So I'm going to say, Ryan, I'll give you percentages because it's a quarterback-driven league, right? Are we really going to see quarterbacks fall, especially ones with so much hype? Probably not. So I'll say it's a 35% chance that they get one, even though they really want one.
Man, if you really want one, go get one. Don't be so afraid. You can't be scared. I have to say I'm lower than that. I think it's like a 20% chance. I just don't know. I'm just going really off gut. I don't have any information there. Yeah. It's actually been pretty quiet, I think, coming out of Broncos headquarters about their feelings on the quarterback position. So I just have a weird gut feeling that they're just going to sit there. There's going to be, 5 that go in the top 7, and then they just trade back, and and it's kind of a tough thing for everyone. Last thing I want to ask before I transition to the second part of this, which is more about Drew Lock. Our friend of the program, James Palmer, was on someone else's program. I wish I could remember what it was. But yesterday he said, I don't think the Broncos are the best fit for Trey Lance. he's a guy who needs to go and sit somewhere. First of all, I think this idea of quarterbacks sitting needs to just die. It never actually happens. Like, I guess like Jordan Love is an example of a guy who did, but like every other team, if you don't have a solidified starter and you bring this guy in, he's starting after the bye week, like almost last case scenario.
There's also some crazy stat, and now I heard it 1 year ago, so maybe it changed last year, but in the past 10 years or 5 years or something, there hasn't been a successful quarterback that has sat more than 8 games to start his carear and then gone on to be a success outside of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
so
and everyone wants to bring up Mahomes.
He's the only one.
You can't comp to Mahomes ever. But it's fair to say he was one of the guys. The difference is Alex Smith was like an MVP candidate the year before they drafted him. So you got to have that level of quarterback for this to work. The Broncos obviously don't, and most teams don't, that are drafting quarterbacks unless there's something with age or like an Alex Smith situation where they just kind of had an internal feeling, this guy's good, he's not quite good enough. It just doesn't – I just think it's time to put that to bed. Like, if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10, there's a 95% chance he's playing in year one, and maybe that's too low. Even Patrick Mahomes played in year one. It was just in week 17.
Right. And on top of that, not only was Alex Smith balling when they had him, they were also a team that had a bye week. You know, they were a very, very good team. The Broncos aren't there right now, Ryan. They're certainly not. And it is, like I said, I think earlier this week on this podcast, the organizational fit for Trey Lance isn't perfect. So I agree with James Palmer there, but do you care about fit or do you care about getting the best quarterback available to you? To me, it is so easy. You get the best quarterback available, and then heck, Ryan, on day 3 of the draft, if you really think you need someone to start ahead of Trey Lance and you don't want it to be Drew Lock, you want it to be a veteran, well, then go trade a 4th or 5th round pick for Teddy Bridgewater, pay him $18 million this year, suck it up, put that investment in Trey Lance, and then, trade Drew for a 4th round pick or something like that. If you're really concerned about fit, because doing those moves would make it seem like a better fit for Trey Lance, then you do that for a guy that you think can be your franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Anyways, that wasn't the main question I had there. My question was, do you personally think that Trey Lance needs to sit a year? Because I don't. It's one of the main takeaways I have from when I watch Trey Lance tape is, I get that the jump in competition is absurd to go from FCS football to the NFL, and there's going to be a big transition period there. But I just don't look at him and say, like, oh, this is a guy who needs a lot of work with an NFL coach before he's ready to play in the league. I think he can go in. There's definitely, like I said, the speed of the game is going to be a huge transition for him. How else is he going to transition other than just seeing it with his own eyes? I don't look at him as like a guy who has like, oh, he's got mechanical issues and this and that and the other thing, and he doesn't he's not comfortable under center. Like, none of those things really scare me. So I don't think he is a guy that has to wait. I really do think you can draft him and put him in week 1.
Point 20 that he had in high school and college, which is like a 1/4 of what Trevor Lawrence has had, and say, well, he can't start. Well, not necessarily. I mean, it certainly needs more experience. You can agree with that, but that doesn't mean that he can't start right away, Ryan. So I'm with you. What tools does he not have that would make him not be able to start? There's nothing, in my opinion, literally nothing. In fact, the biggest hurdle for guys coming out of college, regardless of what level, is the mental aspect. And from everything we've heard, Trey Lance has that with flying colors and can pick things up extremely quick. And he also comes from the best small school program to transition to the NFL. Maybe it's not the best in the country, but in terms of small schools, it's the best. It's the most pro ready. So he would be ready to take off. Carson Wentz didn't have that much of an issue. Did he have rookie struggles? Sure, a tiny bit, but not like crazy rookie struggles. So that is not something that I would be concerned with. I think it's a really good point, Ryan, that Trey Lance certainly wouldn't need to sit 2 years, because if you do that, then you're pretty much saying that he's just not the guy, like Paxton Lynch kind of. If you're not anointing him the guy at the second year, then you're saying he just doesn't have it. Look, the Chiefs had Alex Smith playing at a really high level, and they said, nope, we're still going to take this second-year quarterback because we know he has it. And even sitting 1 year, if you don't have an Alex Smith ahead of him, it's not going to happen. He's going to play.
Yeah, exactly. And Carson Wentz is a good one to look at. Now, he fell off the face of the earth, and everyone, just talks about how much he sucks now. But if you look back, his rookie season, he played well. Well enough that people in Philadelphia were all about him. They loved him. And I think they either went 8-8 or 7-9. Maybe Allie can help us with that one. But they had a decent season. And then he comes out the next year and is an MVP candidate until he gets hurt. And the reason I bring that up is because there's just no way he would have played that well in year 2 if he didn't play in year 1. There would have been, a transition period. So that's why, to me, it's like, look, you invest in this guy. You believe in him. You better go get him ready, unless you're worried about his mental makeup getting, jarred by the NFL level, in which case, don't draft him in the top 10 because if you can get put knocked around by the NFL and the transition is going to hurt you mentally, it will eventually. The NFL is a cruel beast. So that's my take on that. Okay, let's transition here.
Really, Brian.
Oh, go ahead.
Allie coming in with the good information that he went 7-9 in his rookie year, and so yeah. That is pretty darn good coming from North Dakota State. Ryan, would you take that right now? And let's say it's a 8-9 record for the Broncos under Trey Lance. Trey Lance plays his rookie season.
Bro, I hate the 17-game record so much. Would I take that? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would too. You're heading in the right direction as a team and with a young quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow for the fans, especially because you see, all the moves the Broncos made in free agency, and those were exciting moves. Those were winning moves that they made, and so it'd be tough to still have a losing record, I think, for people. But if Trey Lance delivers you 8 wins, just separating that, you're going to feel good about the way things are headed moving forward. We got another super chat here from Andrew Romero. He says, you guys going to have the great draft coverage again this year. I'll be driving and need some mobile coverage. Great jobs, guys. Oh yeah. We are going to have an even better show for you this year than we had last year. Live at some points during all 3 days of the draft, live for the entirety of the first day, most of the second day. We're going to have all sorts of guests, all sorts of exciting things going on, games that we're going to play, and of course, instant analysis from both of us, from our draft guys, Andre and Henry, from Mace, of course. So make sure you put that down on your schedule. DNVR Draft Day Live, going to go crazy.
And Ryan, isn't it true that starting Sunday, you're going mute from Sunday until Thursday so that your voice can be prepared for like 100 hours of talking that you're going to do during draft coverage? Did I read that company memo right?
I already do 3 podcasts a day at the least on most days. So I think my voice can handle it. I've been training for this nonstop. I might not have a voice on Sunday, though. Just because the DNVR golf tournament is on Saturday, and that's going to be a little bit wild.
Well, you're on the course. Isn't it supposed to be quiet?
This isn't going to be that kind of tournament. Like Allie just brought up, if you're enjoying the show, hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe. You could sign up for alerts anytime we go live. We appreciate that, of course. Okay, Drew Lock. Let's say the Broncos don't draft a quarterback. They don't draft Trey Lance. It doesn't all fall for them. It doesn't work out for them. And they trade back. At that point, it becomes a very real possibility that the Broncos roll into this year with a quarterback room, or they roll into training camp with a quarterback room of Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, and Brett Rippon. that is going to be a weird pill to swallow for Broncos fans, I think.
Yes, it's going to be very, very weird. And you'd think that there'd have to be some changes made. But Ryan, at this point, there's no easy signing Alex Smith to kind of plug up a hole and say, look, we have competition. Alex Smith's off the table. Nick Mullins, is that really competition that you're going to sign, or someone like that? I don't really think so in terms of true competition. So you're absolutely right. Unless there's a trade for Teddy Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, it could very much be Drew Lock is plan A. And then, yeah, we have a backup plan, and that's what it's going to be. And if that's the case, what can Drew do to earn back the fan base right now? Because it is very, very split. And Ryan, even people that defend Drew, I would say there's, a very small section of Broncos country that says roll with Drew no matter what, don't worry about it. I think there's a large portion like you and I can be there as well, that says, you know what, get a quarterback if you can, but if not, Drew, give him one more year, see what he can do. And then there's a large section of the fan base that says, no, Drew's done. You got to move on. You have to do whatever to draft a quarterback.
Yes. That is where I have a really hard time imagining this scenario playing out in a positive way. The people who are anti-Drew Lock are so dug in that he's going to have to go above and beyond to win them back over. And I'm talking like playing at a Pro Bowl level. Now, again, his job is not to win over the fans. His job is to win over the coaches and, the front office. But it's just going to it's going to be a weird dynamic because, like I said, people are really dug in on this. Like, they've gone from, we're excited for Drew Lock before last season to like, we hate Drew Lock at this point. And yeah, that's not everyone, but it's certainly a large section of the fan base. And so I think it really comes down to wins and losses, which it always does. But I think to get that group back, he's really going to have to go above and beyond and play great. And I think he's capable of that. To me, it's go out, get the Broncos off to a good start. That's going to be really important. Anything less than, 3-1 in the first 4, 2-2 is like tolerable. Anything less than that, it's going to be pitchforks outside of the stadium. So it's get them off to a good start, eliminate some of the silly turnovers. Don't be putting the ball in harm's way a lot. All of that stuff, that is going to be huge. But the start of the season, Zach, is so important. You got to get some early wins to just get people to calm down a little.
Yeah, you're 100% right. What did Drew do when he won most of Broncos country over his rookie year? He went 4-1, Ryan. And now we do remember the 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but he went 4-1. That's what it was, right? If you were going to point to one thing about why you had confidence in Drew Lock last year, well, it's because he went 4-1 on a team that was simply not winning with Joe Flacco, not winning with what was going on that season. Drew came in and was a winner. So 4-1 start. Holy cow. Yeah. Fan base would buy in a lot more than they are now. And Ryan, let me throw some numbers your way. If Drew did this throughout the entire season this year, these are going to be rough numbers based on a quarterback from last year. 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That sounds pretty darn good, but 56 quarterback rating, so totally fine, and 90 passer rating. Not mind-blowing, world-shattering in any ways, and a 65% completion. Would you take that?
You're telling me about Gardner Minshew, yeah?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay. Who is it?
I'm telling you about Joe Burrow, former number 1 overall pick. Now, what I had to do with his numbers, because he only played about half the season, I pretty much doubled him. He had 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So that's what I did there. And you love the 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Or do you? I mean, almost 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, you love the TD to INT ratio. You love the completion percentage. It's interesting that the other numbers didn't follow suit. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Just the QBR and the passer rating, but both of those are acceptable. at the least. The difference is, Joe Burrow was a rookie #1 overall pick, and so everything he does is going to be seen through a certain scope, and everything Drew Lock does now will be seen through a different scope. But those numbers would certainly get people excited. What were Gardner's numbers last year?
Okay, so he played exactly half the season. So you could double him. So if you doubled him, if he played the whole season, 32 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, outplayed Joe Burrow in terms of those numbers. 51.7 QBR, so a little lower than Joe Burrow's, and 96 passer rating, higher than Joe Burrow's. So
And
Ryan,
completion percentage?
That's just crazy how we talk about Joe Burrow and Gardner Minshew. Completion percentage 66.1. So better than Joe Burrow.
This is exactly what I'm saying about perspective and, the lens that you're viewing it through. Joe Burrow does that as a rookie. That's great. He's amazing.
Yep.
Next big thing. Gardner Minshew does that as a third-year player. Or is it just second? No, that's just his second year, isn't it?
You're right.
Yeah. He does that as a second-year player who wasn't drafted very high. And it's all we're doing is highlighting the things he can't do. Meanwhile, he's in Jacksonville. This is why I can't, I always come back to Minshew a little bit when we're having these conversations. It's like you could trade for him. But let's be honest. If Drew Lock puts those numbers up, either one of those, the Broncos will be winning football games. And the fan base will slowly but surely come around. So that is not, it is not a crazy bar when you talk about a 3-1 TD to INT. That is a crazy bar, but it's funny just to say, like, if he could just be Gardner Minshew, people will be happy. I think for the most part, people will, especially because some of the knocks on Minshew. Oh, it doesn't have a big arm. Well, Drew does have a big arm. So it really does come down to winning. But I think if he does put up 2-1 touchdown to interception, that will happen. Now someone in the comments here, Fallen Angel, says, guys, if Lock plays average, we'll win our division. I disagree with that. But I think if
Lock plays average, the Broncos will be competing for the playoffs via a wild card spot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. Like, again, that's good enough, I think. I think if the Broncos have a winning record and are competing for a playoff spot, the outlook for Drew Lock will change dramatically.
And so, Ryan, we like QBR the best. Is that right? More than passer rating to get kind of an easy stat?
Yeah, I mean, they both have their flaws, but...
So here's who was right around average as a quarterback last year: Matthew Stafford and Matt Ryan. Neither of those guys now are MVP guys. Of course, they're big-time veterans. Teddy Bridgewater also right around there. If Drew Lock plays to that level, I mean, we're talking about guys that, two of them at least, are franchise quarterbacks. So people wouldn't be blown away, and I don't think people would be saying that, he's the next Patrick Mahomes. But also you have to realize the jump that he would have taken from year 2 to year 3. For Drew Lock to go from, the 30th best quarterback in many statistical categories to 15 to average, that would be huge, not just for Drew, but I think this team would absolutely be a winning team, probably a double-digit win team this year. And then also you would have to be excited about where he could go. Again, maybe you don't think he goes from 15 to 1 the following year, but Ryan, if he goes from 15 to 10 the next year and then 10 to 8, and he kind of averages out right around there, doesn't keep climbing, you're talking about a top 10 quarterback. Yeah, you'll take that.
Yeah, and again, I really don't think it's crazy to believe that Drew Lock can make that sort of jump. Now, going from where he is now to a top 10 quarterback in the league is harder to see right now. But for him to become an average quarterback next year is not crazy to me. What is funny, though, is we would probably be sitting right here 365 days from now having the same conversation. Getting just back to average probably isn't good enough to quiet people down about wanting the Broncos to get a quarterback. We've got people in the comments talking about Aaron Rodgers next year. What if Deshaun Watson, gets cleared? There's all these conversations will not go away if Drew is just average. And that makes this even tougher because there's going to be more pressure on him to be better than average this year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think what changes about this conversation is we're not talking about drafting quarterbacks next year, because if Drew plays average, his team's going to win 10 games at least. They're going to be picking 20th. It's going to be too hard, especially with George Payton's philosophy of building draft capital, not giving it away. So it's going to be too hard to move up to get a quarterback next year. So what we're talking about is those two guys you mentioned, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, who's another vet that could become available. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger decides my time in Pittsburgh's done, but I still want to play. And those are the upgrades that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's I don't want to be there. I want certainty. So whether the Broncos go and get a quarterback in this draft, or Drew Lock goes and proves everyone wrong, which would be awesome. You know, someone up here said I'm not anti-Lock, I'm pro Broncos championship. Well, in that case, then you are very pro Drew Lock working out, because like we always say, the best case scenario is for the Broncos to already have their franchise quarterback in the building, not have to give up anything to get him. So again,
Ryan,
everyone needs certainty.
So let me run a few numbers by you of players from last year, and tell me if that would be certainty, not just this middling average. Tell me if this is what would do it. 67% completion, a 71 QBR, 101 passer rating, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Yeah, that gets it done.
That's Derek
Drew
Carr
Lock.
Last year.
Yeah, that's Drew Lock, quarterback of the future. And Derek Carr was like amazing for the first half of the season and not very good for the second half of the season. So if that was to happen, it would be a messy situation. But just the numbers, if that's like consistent for Drew, he's back.
Okay, now one more guy. We'll go 66.6% completion, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 98 passer rating, and a 69. Nice QBR.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Justin Herbert. And obviously he had a tremendous, the best rookie season that a quarterback has ever had. But Ryan, in terms of QBR, he was only the 13th best. So, and Derek Carr, the 11th best. So what we're saying for certainty is just above average, borderline top 10. We're not saying that he has to be the top 5 quarterback, Ryan. I think you're crazy to expect him to go from the 30th best to the top 5. But look at where these guys fall. And so that's what certainty would do. Drew has to play very well. He doesn't have to play out of his mind.
No, exactly. And again, I have a lot of confidence that he can do that, especially in the first year. It's hard to say this. In his first time in the second year in a system in the NFL, and the first time since the best year of his football career. So I think there's a lot of possibilities there. I mean, a second year Jerry Jeudy, a second year KJ Hamler, a healthy Cortland Sutton, hopefully a better offensive line. There's a lot of exciting things that can get you feeling like Drew Lock could do that. He could produce at a top 15 level, which I think will have the Broncos winning games, and we'll have the fans feeling a lot better. But it all comes down to do the Broncos think that can happen? And if they don't, well, then they might have to get aggressive next week.
Yep, exactly. And Ryan, that just I've been chomping at the bit to tell you my DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week, and it goes to the draft next week. And for all the people in the comment section and people listening, for those of you that want the Broncos to be aggressive and get a quarterback, that's what I'm going to hit on here over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Like you said, Ryan, they have every single team. You can pick who their first draft pick is going to be. And like you said earlier, Trey Lance is plus 200. So I'm taking that, but I'm also going to pair it with Justin Fields plus 800, because I think if he slides past the 49ers, it looks very juicy for that to be the pick for the Broncos. And like you and the Nagalator said earlier, that you corrected me and said Mac Jones is the favorite. So that's good news for this. So you put the same money on both of those. You bring Trey Lance's odds down to what? I guess that's plus 100 if that hits and Justin Fields doesn't hit. But then you get a big time winning if Justin Fields pans out. So I'm going to couple those together and go in on quarterback first round.
So if that happens, you're guaranteed to be up at least 1 unit if one of the two come around. And if Justin Fields is the guy, then you're rolling in the dough.
Yep, you're plus 700 there.
Yeah. All right. Mine's a lot more simple. You don't have to make multiple bets. You don't have to wait until next week. You just have to bet on what I believe to be the single best bet you can find on DraftKings Sportsbook on any given night. And that is Michael Porter Jr. over 2.5 threes at minus 113. I can't believe they're still giving you this kind of value on this. At one point, it was like plus 150, and we were just raking it in, and it slowly moved down. But still, this is a standard bet. With Jamal Murray out, especially now, he's a primary scoring option for the Nuggets. He loves shooting threes. I call him MP Clay because I just think he's a 6'11" Klay Thompson. And yeah, so once, he's going to get 6 up a night, and he's going to hit 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost getting even odds there. That does seem like that's going to be a bet where it's, minus 180 in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. I mean, he keeps hitting it. It's been on an incredible streak. So that's why we call him Money Printer Jr.
I love it. I love it. And I love all of the draft stuff that they have going on at DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm going to get into the NBA after the draft. But Ryan, every time I look at DraftKings Sportsbook, there's pages and pages more of draft odds. And I don't expect that to change over the next week. So make sure to download the top rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code DNVR when you sign up to get the best sign up bonus out there. And also, guys, if you want to get in on this weekend's action, DraftKings Sportsbook is the official betting partner of UFC, and they're putting you in the center of this weekend's action and giving you 26-1 odds on either title contender to reign victorious. So what you have to do is go into DraftKings Sportsbook, pick either main event fighter to win this week's UFC 261 title fight, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give you 26-1 odds. All you have to do is put $5 on either fighter to win, and if they win, well, boom, you will get 26-1 odds on that $5. And of course, you can bet on basketball tonight. You can bet on hockey. My favorite thing about DraftKings isn't just how much they have to offer, but it's their daily odds boosts that you get one every single day. And it's just incredible how you turn a minus 180 bet, which MP Clay may turn into, they'll just boost it up to plus 200 and you get the same exact line. So I absolutely love that feature on DraftKings. So make sure to head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to turn $5 into $130 in free bets if the title contender of your choice wins. Place your bet and watch the fists fly this weekend. That's code DNVR to turn $5 into $130 in free bets only at DraftKings Sportsbook. For a limited time only, must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details.
And if you want more winning bets, make sure you tune in at 4 o'clock to DNVR Bets Daily, where we hand out winners currently at a 65% clip, which is pretty solid.
I'll take that passer, that completion percentage, and that bet hit.
Yeah, if you're hitting bets, they say if you can hit 56%, you can quit your day job. Well, we're hitting 65%.
Don't leave us, Ryan.
So I'm out. But yeah, check us out, 4 o'clock, DNVR Bets Daily, or check out the rest of this podcast anywhere you download podcasts. We'll get into all the questions from DNVR members. But if you tuned into this, we appreciate you. Hit us with a like on your way out, and we will talk to you guys later.